Hello, it's the middle of June and so I think it's time for a garden tour. In fact, we're coming up to Midsummer's Day. I have my new garden helper with me. This is Bentley, who spends more and more time in the garden with me, which I'm really pleased about. He's a good boy, yes, there we go. And I thought I'd go through this vegetable garden bed by bed to show you everything that's in it, what's been happening, the chaos that ensues, and also to celebrate some of the absolute triumphs here. If you're new to the channel or you haven't visited for a while, you might like to know that the beds are laid out in a block of 16, so they're beds that are about 13 feet long-ish, and the outer beds are 4 feet wide and the inner beds are 3 feet wide, just because that's how it works out. I have really quite wide pathways because I like to make them accessible, and I also like to dump lots and lots of pots and growing things in the pathways. So if I make them wide enough, there's still plenty of room for me to walk through. So here we are with bed number 1, and there are perennial onions on that side. So those are Welsh bunching onions. They've got seed heads on them at the moment, and I can see lots and lots of seeds, so I'll collect those, but I'll also just sprinkle them. What do you think, boy? I think there might be lots of interruptions today. In the middle here is elephant garlic. Now I've snapped the tops off, the scapes came up, so that's effectively the flower bud, to encourage all the energy to go back into the bulb. And these will be ready to harvest when the leaves are yellowy brown to about halfway down, which looks like it won't be too long. Here I've got a sweet Sicily plant. Now this is one of my favourites actually. It's one of my favourite herbs. It has multiple uses. The leaves I use with rhubarb to take out the tartness of rhubarb, so it almost takes out the worst of the acidity, but actually it's just very sweet, so you use some of the leaves and you can replace about 25% of the sugar that you would put in rhubarb. You can use this instead. It's got sort of aniseedy, actually almost a licorice flavour, and you can also just eat the seeds almost like they're sweeties. At this end of the bed there is a chive plant. That's also gone to seed actually. I can't see many seeds in that yet. Haha, there are some. And likewise I will sprinkle those around the plant. Very happy for those to self-seed. And then this structure is made out of willow. I made this with Amy from In the Cottage Garden in the spring. And we made it much taller, but I've cut it down because it's just too windy here to have a really tall structure. And to grow up through it, I've planted 2 achiki curry squashes, and they produce a small orange squash that's got a really sweet taste. Not as sweet as butternut squash, but I really like the taste of them. And then along this side of the bed, I've planted some parsley that had self-sown in another bed down near my house, and also some multi-sown beetroot. So these are beetroots that have been sown into modules, sort of 3 or 4 seeds at a time. And then just next to that I've also put in some white currant cuttings. I harvested a lot of white currants this week and also thought I'd quite like some more plants. So I've taken some semi-ripe cuttings, and if you're not sure how to do that, I'll leave a link at the end of this video. You can find out how to take lots of your own. Bed number 2 looks very different to number 3, which is next to it here. Bed number 2 has got almost no weeds in it. Almost. It's been weeded, and hello boy. I've started planting brassicas in it, which is why I've got the netting over. I've also, for every 2 or 3 brassicas that I've put under netting, I've planted one out in the open to support the local butterfly population. And then bed number 3, I haven't got to this year in terms of weeding it and clearing out, so it's absolutely chock-a-block with things like rosebay willow herb and grasses. Actually, mostly rosebay willow herb and grasses. Let me go and put those away. Bed number 3 actually does have some edibles in it. They're just well hidden among all the weeds. Down by my feet there's some thyme, which is a creeping thyme, and it is flowering beautifully. And as I talk to you, I'm just pulling out a few of the rosebay willow herbs here so I can see what else there is in the garden. There's Aquilegia going to seed. Well, I'm really happy for them to seed themselves everywhere. Here, with these very funky heads, which are going to be flowers before too very long, are leeks. And I've let those go to seed so I can collect the seeds for next year. I don't do the gardening as I walk through it normally, but now I'm here, I feel the need to lift a few of these weeds. And down in the corner here is some thyme. It's a really big patch of it, so I will be gathering lots of that to dry and also to freeze. I actually really like this bed, however chaotic it looks. It was the second bed I planted up, and I don't know, I just really like it. It's got an Acer here, which is a red leaf one, and then a very blue hosta underneath it. So there's a little patch of permanent planting there, and I actually quite like the idea of having a red-leafed Acer filling this space here. And then let's look at bed number 4. On one level, bed number 4 has been an absolute disaster, and yet at the same time it's been a triumph. I'm delighted with these poppies, which have been growing in and around this area for the last 4 years. I sowed the seeds not long after we got here, and they just self-sow every year. Aren't they pretty? I love them. And there's some more sweet Sicily, but at the front here are some broad beans which I grew from seed in spring, and they've just failed. They've failed to thrive, they've failed to grow, and now they're failing to produce beans. So I'm going to use this space for growing other crops. And also my beautiful lupins this year take an absolute hammering from aphids, and although this one has survived so far, I've lost several others in the garden, and I think I might try and take some cuttings of this, and then that plant will survive in terms of I'll have its cuttings and I'll have its clones. In addition to the vegetable garden, I also have several areas of fruit growing, and this is a raspberry hedge growing on a mound. Actually, on the other side of that is a channel that we had dug out to help the water flow around the land. So we dug the soil out, put it in a mound along the edge, and then in the top of that I planted these raspberries. This is Autumn Bliss, and I don't know why, but the birds don't seem to take these raspberries very much. I don't know whether it's because a lot of them grow sort of tucked underneath the leaves, so the birds don't see them. But anyway, they don't, so I'm very happy about that. So we've got, I can see plenty of flowers coming, so hopefully we'll have a nice harvest. They are actually already ripening. There are a few not yet ripe, and the ripe ones got eaten as Mr. J and I walked through the garden having a look last night. Bed number 5 is looking really good. These are elephant garlic. Now they're multi-stemmed because I left them in last year, so the bulbs divided, and now they've grown again. Hopefully by the time I harvest those, I'll have quite a big clump of elephant garlic, so there's one at each end. Around the edges, I've put in some sweet corn, and in the centre there is some scarlet kale. And then at the end here and at the end there is a courgette, and the variety is a tenor polka. And then on the very edge down here are some more white currant cuttings, just because when I cut them I cut masses of cuttings, so I've just tucked them in. We've had incredibly hot dry weather since, she says, mopping her brow. We've had incredibly hot dry weather since I put them in, so I did come out last night and water them. And this is not going to root now, it's just too dry and too crispy, so I'll remove that one and add it to the compost heap. The 4 central beds are designated as just ornamental beds. However, I do grow herbs and sometimes some brassicas in them. So bed number 6 has got some bronze fennel and marjoram, possibly oregano, lavender, chives, There's Nepeta and Monarda. Gosh, it's warm. And I'm really pleased to see that there's also some skirret regrowing, which is a root vegetable. It's a perennial one, and every year I keep trying to grow it large enough to be able to harvest from it. I think I probably need to dig it up and give it a much better space to grow in, rather than crammed in with lots and lots of perennial ornamentals. So bed number 7 sort of echoes bed 6. More Nepeta. There's a green fennel, plenty of marjoram and thyme, monarda. It really does kind of echo it. There's some sedums on each side, and also the roses. You're probably not here for a flower tour, so let's get on to the veggies in bed number 8. Earlier in the year I showed you me planting potatoes in this bed and covering them over just to stop the cats digging them up. I could probably do with taking the covering off now, and I can use it on a different bed. But the potatoes are starting to flower, and there are also quite a lot of chop suey greens growing in here. It's caused from something on that side. Let's have a look. So here we go, the chop suey greens, which produce lovely flowers. Sometimes they're yellow, sometimes they're white and yellow. And the reason there are so many of them in here is there were obviously some seeds still in my compost when I took it from the compost bin. But I'm very pleased. I'm very happy to see how well these potatoes are doing, and it won't be all that long before we get a harvest from these. We have 3 beds filled with strawberries and garlic and grass. These ones are really looking ripe now. Bed number 9 is planted with brassicas and also a few leeks. So it's a combination of red cabbage and calabrese. So that's like what we call broccoli in the supermarkets, the big heads. And possibly, she says, possibly some purple sprouting broccoli in there as well. Can't entirely be sure. What I can see really clearly though is a caterpillar, and this netting is on to prevent cabbage white and cabbage moth butterflies laying their eggs on the plants. But what I've done very clearly is not checked the leaves quite well enough and planted it with an egg in there. So I'm going to get that off there right now. All right then, little caterpillar, off you come. I'm going to put it onto this, which is a perennial cabbage, but it has now it's gone to seed, and I'm letting it go to seed because I've got new ones. But if I rest this in there, it might be able to go onto those leaves and carry on growing there. Beds 10 and 11, much like the other 2, are mostly ornamental. And if you would like me to do an ornamental tour showing you all the flowers, all the flowering plants, all the non-edibles in the garden, then let me know in the comments. I'd be really happy to do that. And I'll also do a tour of some of the other areas of the garden, because right at the moment the food forest is looking pretty spectacular. So mostly ornamentals. There are a few herbs, so there's some oregano or marjoram there and there, and likewise she says looking, have I got, I don't know if I've got any in here. There is some ochre down here, so that's OCA, ochre. It's a small tuber from the Andes. We don't actually eat it, I grow it as absolutely wonderful ground cover. And bed number 12 is where I grow my beans. So these are Greek Gigantes beans that I've grown from seed, or most of them are. There is one that has regrown from last year. Now, for a long time I've been sharing my experiments and my adventures of growing runner beans as perennials, and I do have to say my success rate isn't enormous. It's somewhere between 10 and 50%. It's not vast, and here it was more like 10%, but one of the plants from the seeds that I grew last year has grown back, and so you don't just get this one stem coming up the cane. There are 5 or more, which means that there's a bigger root system tapping into more nutrients, and I'll get a higher yield from that plant than I will from the ones grown just this year. Now, over there on that side there are some marjoram. There's also some chard that has gone to seed, and all of that will be cleared out to put in some more climbing beans. I have a variety called Blue Lake. It's a French climbing bean, but I've had a bit of a disaster. I brought these up to the garden a few days ago because they were growing roots out of the bottom and pretty desperate to be planted. And I forgot to plant them. And then we've had the 2 hottest days of the year. They didn't have any water, and so when I came up last night they all looked very dry and crispy. So I gave them a good soak of water. In fact, I stood them in water for a couple of hours and then took them out. They are still, the root balls are still nice and moist this morning, but I am going to give it another 24 hours of TLC before I put them into the ground, because a weak plant is one that is going to be far more vulnerable to pests and diseases. Anyway, I just wanted to show you that even after 45 years of gardening, I still make mistakes all the time. And here are what remains of my red currant harvest. Between the birds and the squirrels, they're getting eaten, so I have an entire row of red currants here. This is the only bush that hasn't been stripped of most of the currants. They're still not entirely ripe yet. I think I might have to come and harvest these so that we have at least some for use in the kitchen before the birds eat them all. Earlier in the week I harvested all our white currants, and I will be cooking with those today. Maybe I'll come and get these red currants and add them to the white ones and make a kind of pink currant jelly. I often say that bed number 13 is my favourite, but this year it hasn't been as lovely as I'd like it to be. But that's all right. About a month ago I planted this Asturian tree cabbage in the corner here. Well, it looks like the slugs have really been enjoying that, and I can also see a bit of caterpillar poo on there, so caterpillars have been enjoying that too. This is Thalictrum, non-edible, but I absolutely love it as a flower. Brings me much joy. There is some monarda in here, although that mostly seems to have failed this year, and some agastache, and then lots of this golden marjoram with its lovely yellow leaves. But even that's getting a bit woody. It could do with replacing, really. So I will probably lift that on a cooler day. Maybe when we've had some rain, I'll lift it, I'll move it to the food forest. It can do its own thing in there, and I'll replenish it with a younger plant. But I'll also take some softwood cuttings, which will give me plenty of new plants. And this year, bed 14 is looking spectacular with its monarda and the crazy little flowers on the top that send out funny little crowns. I do love them, and I love the scent of the leaves. Great for using in potpourri. There's plenty of marjoram and chives. There's some flowers, and then at this end I've got Jerusalem artichoke. Those are tubers, and usually the plants can get anywhere between 6 and 10 feet tall, but this is a short variety called dwarf, and it only gets to about 90 centimetres tall, so it's absolutely ideal on our incredibly windy site here. Oh, and I've been visited by Bentley again. Hello, Bentley. Oh, and he's just said to me that at the end here is some sage. Oh, I do like sage. Crispy. Sage leaves fried in butter. They go incredibly crisp. You don't want to be eating too many of them because it's a lot of butter, but oh, they are spectacular. Bed number 15 has rhubarb down this side. It's a variety called Timperley Early. It's a variety called Timperley Early, and it really hasn't enjoyed the very hot, very dry conditions that we've had this spring. Usually we get a huge harvest from it. I've only taken 2 harvests and it's really struggling. So I'm going to feed the soil, give it a really good water, give it a bit of TLC and hope it perks up. I'm not going to harvest from it anymore this year to give it a really good chance to send energy back down to the roots to give us a crop next year. I'd be really sad if we lost these crowns. I brought them with me from our old house, so we've had them about 10 years and these actually were all one plant, which I divided up when we moved here. Maybe it's time to divide them again. I can see some offsets there, but right now I just want to give them a bit of love. The front of the bed there is some garlic. It's very nearly ready to harvest, and this is elephant garlic, and then these, which have gone to flower, are leeks. Some of the reason the leeks are still there is because I left them in to have in the hungry gap, and then it got so hot that they started to bolt, so I haven't eaten those. The foxglove was one that was self-sown, so I left it there. It's really pretty. I'm very pleased with it. And at the far end there's an Asturian tree cabbage. I do need to lift it now because the flowers are gone. I'd let it flower to support the local bee and flying insect population, but there's no flowers for them to have now, so that can go. And then behind me is the last bed, bed number 16. There's not much I can say about bed 16 other than this is not what I wanted to have been showing you. It's absolutely full of weeds. I haven't got around to doing anything with it this year, and it's looking very sad. So I do need to come through. Maybe instead of starting on bed number 1, the next time I come to garden, I should start at number 16 and work my way through this. There is a lupin here, which is kind of semi-planted. I lifted it from another area in the garden a couple of years ago, plonked it in here with the mind of I'll replant that into the food forest, and didn't. And so the roots have managed to embed themselves in the ground enough to survive. It's doing really well, and given how most of the lupins in the garden are struggling, I'm not going to mess with it. So there is some mallow and some sedum. It's actually become mostly ornamentals in here, and I want to rearrange that. There is, oh, I say that, but there are actually 3 really healthy looking rhubarb in here, far more healthy than the ones in bed 15. These are variety 2 are Victoria and 1 is called Sutton Seedless, and they're later varieties than the Timperley Early. So maybe if I clear some of the weeds out and also give this a good water and feed, then maybe these will pick up and I will get a harvest from these, because it would be really nice to have some rhubarb in the freezer for the winter. And this is a Jostaberry bush. Now that's a cross between a gooseberry and a blackcurrant, and they grow into really vigorous, quick growing shrubs. And this year it's absolutely laden with fruit, which is great, and hopefully I will get to it before the birds and the squirrels. But when I'm out here, I'm going to take some more cuttings of this because I really like it. So I'll get on with doing that, and if you want to know exactly how I do it, well, there'll be a link on the screen and also in the video description, and if you click on that, it'll take you straight through to my video.